Welcome back to Jedi Enclave. I'm Daniel.
I'm Chris.
I'm Dan.
And not Daniel, Dan. They're two different people, and we've been answering that question since fucking high school.
It's true.
This isn't going to get confusing at all, is it?
Yeah, it's okay. He'll be dead after this. So, we just saw Rise of Skywalker. And this is what we're going to do. The next few minutes, we're going to do a spoiler-free review of the movie. So if you're watching now, we're not going to spoil it. So don't worry. Like, you can watch the whole thing and you don't have to get out.
Snape kills Dumbledore.
Yep. Oh, God. If you are watching the video after this, labeled spoiler, or whatever we label it, having spoilers in it, don't watch that if you haven't seen the movie yet. But we'll give you another warning when we get to that part too, so no worries. And we can't talk about the thing we were talking about that we had to say, because that in itself is kind of a spoiler.
Later.
Yeah.
So, like, purely objectively, like, visually, I thought this movie was great.
Yep.
Music was fantastic. Acting was mostly pretty good. I didn't like it very much, but the reasons I didn't like it are all spoilers, so we can't go into those at the moment.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to... Okay, so I think we're all generally going to say the same thing about the different metrics of the film. This is a good time for me to say that when we mentioned this like 3 or 4 times, like every day, but when we saw Last Jedi and we came out of there, I was really kind of confused about how I felt about it, and I ended up going and seeing it 6 more subsequent times, and by the second time, I was like able to like the big surprises in that film, like, it already kind of worn off, and I was able to focus on the movie, and I found myself kind of enamored with it. I fell in love with it, and I really liked it. And I had a sense when I walked out of the first showing that I needed to see it again to, like, maybe like figure out how I feel about it. And I walked out tonight, and it's certainly no pleasure for me to say this, but I knew how I felt more or less about it, which was that I didn't like it very much. And this creates an opportunity to make a parallel to when this might have happened a couple of years ago with another movie that was just a little divisive with Star Wars fans called Star Wars: The Last Jedi. And I was kind of like meditating out loud on the way home from the theaters, and it kind of like, as I was like checking my phone on the toilet, like everything just kind of like solidified into an idea, which is my buddy Gordo, who's we're eventually going to have on the show. I played Battlefront with him, and he posted a selfie about how much he loved the movie and how great it was. And my response wasn't a visceral, like,
fuck you, yeah, how dare you like something I don't like.
Yeah, you fucking fake fan, right? I was super happy for him, and I'm glad that he liked it. And I know that there are people that will watch it and they'll like it, and that's awesome. Now, going into this, I was getting a little worried after the Hollywood premiere, because I had accidentally read a couple of spoiler-free reviews, not the whole reviews, just like the headlines. And like, out of every 5, like 3 of them were pretty lukewarm, if not negative, and 2 were good.
I took a glance at the Rotten Tomatoes page this morning, and it was at like something like 60%, which is absolutely garbage for Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I tend to distrust Rotten Tomatoes a little bit. Famously, there was a group that claimed responsibility for tanking the Last Jedi score.
That is true.
Or was it the critical score?
It was something, but like, audience reviews were not enabled for the movie this morning.
Oh,
so that was based solely on critics.
So it was just the critical scores. Yeah. Well, yes.
Like, seeing that all by itself was enough to set off some warning alarms.
Yeah. The last warning alarm was at a channel that I respect a whole bunch, that is more or less one of the prime sources of inspiration for our channel, Mr. Sunday Movies, posted their spoiler-free review today, and the title was something like, let's talk about Star Wars, and then in parentheses, it sucked. And like, I respect those guys' opinions so much. And I read that and my heart just kind of sank. I was like, oh, fuck. So, but I gotta say, that there was, and we're going to talk about the stuff that we don't like, and we're sure as hell going to talk about the stuff we did like. None of it made me fold up my napkin and leave the Star Wars table, right? I think that with as turbulent as this last set of 3 movies were, there were a couple of things that I don't know how I would have done them better based on the things that I know. Like after Last Jedi, you know that Lucasfilm and Disney told J.J. Abrams, like, we need to do this a certain way. And J.J. Abrams, in as much as I love his films, has always been the yes man to any studio that hires him, right? Mm-hmm. That's the reason they picked him for Force Awakens, is because they didn't have to worry about drama from him. He would do more or less what they told him to do and still make a good movie. Like, that's kind of the magic of him. J.J. Abrams is a really good filmmaker. And so, like, I know that if I were in his position, and if I were a writer, which I'm not, I don't know how I would have pulled out a story that would have pleased the people that liked The Last Jedi while also pleasing the people that didn't like The Last Jedi. Because it seems like the disconnect is about different things, and they're mutually you can't satisfy both of these sides. Like the Rey is a Mary Sue thing. Like that whole thing is a talking point for either side, and there's no way to make everyone happy on that.
So I have 2 thoughts. First is that there is a subsection of people who did not like Last Jedi that you are never going to please.
Yeah.
Whether it's because of racism or sexism or whatever else, they didn't like the way it was done. They didn't like Disney's casting decisions, and they're just never going to be happy.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
My second thought is, I kind of wonder what would have happened if way back when they were casting for Force Awakens, they swapped Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley. So Daisy Ridley is now playing Kylo Ren, and Adam Driver is now playing the character of Rey. Mm-hmm. I wonder if the people who dislike sequels would be happier at that point.
They might have been, and it's funny, like, I've never heard you say that before, but when you just said it, I was like, ooh, like that sounds like a pretty cool.
Well, I would dig it. You never heard me say it before because it's an idea I just had.
Yeah, it's like, but it's like I like it, and then I like right as you were like, my first thought was like, well, of course they wouldn't have a problem because the woman's a bad guy, and it's like. And I know that sucks, and I know that like the whole issue on sexism in Star Wars and whether or not you believe it's there isn't an argument that we can have in a 15 minute video, and it's not one I would want to have even if I could. But like at the same time, like the things that I've seen, the arguments that I've seen that they're really kind of leveled against Rey as a character don't make a lot of sense to me. I think really the only one that has any like real merit is the fact that she had never really acted in a feature film before, and she sometimes is a little wooden when in her acting.
Okay. Which
is not something that bothered me that much, because if you go back and watch the original trilogy, other than Harrison Ford, they weren't like Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill. I almost called them the Camel. Yeah. And Mark Hamill are like, certainly we remember them now as being brilliant actors, but then while they had really good scenes, like sometimes they didn't have great scenes, and it's also because George, like,
they were underdeveloped actors.
Yeah, it's like I watch Rey as a character in any of his movies, and like the thing that I always think of is like, good job.
Yeah. Like,
you've never been in a feature film before. I'm attracted to her in every scene. I feel like I have to be watching her. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that she does where I'm like, oh god, that just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And certainly none of the stuff that I felt like that in Rise of Skywalker were really anything that came from her, really. And we'll talk about this in the spoiler thing, but there's only one actor with one scene in this film where I was like, somebody's phoning it in.
I think I know what you're talking about.
And so, the acting was great. I think we have a pretty special we have a special angle, at least the two of us do, because we're both professional musicians. And so like we're constantly listening to film scores. It's always like the first thing that I notice when I listen to a movie.
Watch a movie?
Yeah. Well, no, I listen to movies.
Oh, yeah.
That the music for Rise of Skywalker was really, not only was it good, but it was likely John Williams' last film score ever. And that in itself is an end of a legacy, because he's been writing music for film since the 1950s. And the fact that a man writing music since the 1950s didn't phone in his last one.
Oh, no.
Like
you could tell he was pouring his heart and soul
Yep.
into this as much as he's done anything else in his life.
Yeah, I was joking with John on the way out. It's like we're gonna find out in 20 years that like his orchestrator like wrote the whole thing or something. It's going to be some very like Beethoven like or like some kind of like big thing. But I also expected the music to be good because those for consideration things came out. They're like little snippets of the entire soundtrack, so that people can decide whether or not he deserves his like 20th Grammy or whatever. So I heard snippets of the film score then, and I knew that just based on the music, it was going to be really good.
So we've been talking a lot. I know Dan has a different opinion.
Well, he doesn't trust himself not to spoil anything.
I will be very careful. I am the layman of the table, and so you as a subject matter experts, I like listening to you a lot. I also I have to admit, I have the dissenting opinion here. I ended up really enjoying the movie. I thought it was a good Star Wars movie.
Okay.
It didn't change my life. Not many movies do, nor should they. At its base, it was entertaining, and I think that that's really the goal of any movie, at least at its base. And I found. I kind of fell in love with it for that reason. I was entertained the whole way through.
Well, so your reason for liking it, or I think we would all agree on that. And this is kind of an important point, that someone can mention a dissenting opinion about Star Wars and not get shot down immediately for liking something. Which, if we're trying to make a point about anything, is that if someone likes something, shut the fuck up. It's not your thing.
Let people like things.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. If you don't like it, then watch the next one or stop watching them. Yeah. Like it's not that big of a deal. It just like.
Well, that ties into the earlier point you were making about how you can't please both crowds.
Yeah.
I mean, there are going to be things about this movie that they really, really please certain crowds, and things that really upset others.
So I have two thoughts here. First is that I am always really careful. I try in my mind to separate whether I enjoyed something from whether I think it is good.
Oh, sure.
Like, I will say Star Wars The Old Republic, I enjoyed my time in it. I would not say it's a good game.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, which one again?
Old Republic.
So the MMO?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I more or less agree.
A second thought. My uncle the other day posted a Facebook status saying basically that he didn't like The Last Jedi because he had come up, like, he watched the original Star Wars trilogy, he had come up with that, and so Star Wars in his mind was always a very particular kind of space opera, where like everything is very grandiose, the good guys have these triumphs and all that, and Last Jedi is very definitely not that kind of movie. Like, it's in that universe, it has those trappings, but the plot and the basic events don't really follow the idioms. So based on that, and knowing that Dan here didn't really like Last Jedi that much,
I did.
Oh, you did?
I did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna bring that up. It was really interesting that you guys both liked The Last Jedi and didn't feel quite as strongly about this movie. I happen to like both of them quite a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it just proves
there
that
goes
people have intricate opinions about things that are, and it's not just like, I think the best kind of Star Wars fan is the one that isn't a one issue Star Wars fan, that like the one, like there's one thing that they're looking for in the movie, and if it doesn't happen, they just freak the fuck out.
Yeah, but my thought is that this is, for better or worse, this was a more space opera-y movie than Last Jedi was. Like, it was
pretty over the top.
Yeah, it didn't try to be subversive. It didn't try to be overly clever with what it was doing with the genre. It was just space opera. It was exactly what you would expect a Star Wars movie to be.
I would completely agree, and I think that's a great point to make. And I think that's kind of the love for Star Wars, that it can be that. I mean, you can dive into the lore, the history, the Force, all of those. Those are massive talking points, and they can be very eye-opening and almost kind of revealing if you kind of do some introspection on those and kind of tie it to your lives and your relationships. But as a movie, it's nice to see space western, space opera.
That's a really good. I really like that point. So what did you think about the pacing? Because that's like the one thing, like as a metric for filmmaking, that kind of 15 minutes into this movie, and I'm like, we are moving real fast.
Like it was maybe like 45 minutes or an hour in. I was like, okay, we've already seen basically everything that was in the trailers.
Yeah.
Like,
that was
where
like
are
in the
we
first
going
30 minutes.
Yeah.
Like at the most, the first 30 minutes. Like the first 3 minutes of that film was most of all the trailers.
Yeah, like it was. Like, breathless pacing does not do it justice. This movie moved really fast.
And I actually really enjoyed that because
that was part of it that I liked.
I was not bored.
I went into this movie. I did not watch a trailer. I have not watched your guys' previous podcast relating to all the theories and theory crafting and all of that. But I do enjoy. I am looking forward to watching that now, having seen the movie.
Sure.
And kind of getting your guys' opinions and intro, your speculation and all that. But
the ones that were wrong.
Yeah.
Well, wrong and right, I'm sure.
Yeah. So we've been going for like 15, 16 minutes.
Yeah, we should probably cut off here. It's fine. It's
right.
If you're watching, you're probably watching on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel if you would, because we like having these conversations with people we care about, and also you who we don't care about at all. So we're kidding. We love you. Put a comment down, and we try to reach out and we try to answer everyone. And we will treat you as an honest actor with an honest opinion, even if we disagree.
Until you prove otherwise.
Yes, and we'll engage with you on that level. And when it goes past that, I just delete the comment, because I'm like, on our YouTube channel, I have like a god power where I can just like zap someone right out. It's really great. So if you are the kind of person that uses Facebook or other social medias, we're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, you should join us there. We're pretty active on Facebook, actually. We're probably the most active on Facebook. We post lots of memes. And also, we have a running podcast on pretty much everywhere we can get podcasts, like Apple Podcasts,
Google Play, Spotify, SoundCloud.
Yeah, so check us out there, and we will see you on the next video.